Okay, well, what about? Yeah, have you ever seen on YouTube? Like some people put out these videos and they're like, "Oh, found a cure to cancer," but they're not giving
Yeah.
it like a
Yeah.
Do you not think
conspiracy.
they've found the cure for cancer? And, like,
No,
that's the biggest distribution or like money that's
there
coming
is.
in. And if
I'll
they
just put it
stop
as
that,
blunt forward as possible. There is no cure. There's just no cure.
I'm not entirely sure. Because if they did find the cure of cancer, do you not think the world would be overcrowded?
Overpopulated? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
there is no cure. There's, see, this
But
is
what-
where a
what
lot
if-
of people like to feed their conspiracies off of, like when they see deaths and stuff, and they feel like the government's controlling stuff. But in reality, when you study this stuff, you start to realize, you know what, this is just ridiculous. Because okay, so you got to look at how does cancer get made first of all, right? You got to look at the dead cause of it to figure out the cure for it, right? You don't just start throwing darts at a thing and hope something sticks, right? Although that is how some medicines are made, right? But in cancer, the way it works is it's just an overgrowth of cells, right? The only time it becomes like dangerous is if it's on your organs and then you die, right? Because it's like overgrown. And, holy shit, my mouth! But
Continue.
dude, I went to aim at a guy and it just looked at the ground. It's like, what the hell? So, what happens is there's two pathways, okay? You got your growth pathway and you got your apoptosis pathway. That's cell death, okay? Those are your whole regulation to how a cell grows and whatever. So look at your skin, for example, right? You get a cut, your skin is growing, and then it grows back. In a week's time, it takes to grow back, right? But how does your body know to grow? How does it know? It gets these signals, these chemical signals within the cells to say to it, hey, look, you need to grow. And then another signal that says, hey, you should stop growing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, essentially, obviously, that's saying that the growth signal is continuously on, and the death signal is off that says stop growing, which is what you get cancer, right? It's just constantly growing. So what happens in this case is there's two pathways. You have your growth and your death pathway. And the thing about it is your entire cell works by proteins. Those are the things, those are your machinery inside the cell. So don't think protein like protein shake. Think protein like they're there to do a job. And there's so many proteins, so many of them in each pathway, In like just your growth pathway, you have so many proteins in there. And just in your death pathway, you have so many proteins in there. So how does cancer happen? It's, well, you need multiple mutations. Not only to the growth, but like you might say, well, can't I just get a mutation to one of the proteins? A mutation, I don't mean like X-Men mutation. I mean mutation like suddenly you alter the protein to keep working continuously. That's what we consider mutations, or to not work anymore. But in this case, we're saying let's keep working continuously for the growth pathway. So if you say, well, what if I just do that? That's not enough to cause cancer. You need more mutations, because your death pathway would say, hold on a sec, something's wrong here. We need to kill ourselves before this gets out of hand. And then it kills that cell. So rather than having a massive amount of cells gone, you just have that one cell. And then it's gone. That's how your body clears it. And you also have your immune system that works with it. But, so you need mutations not only in your growth pathway, but also in your death pathway. You need to say, don't kill yourself. You need to say, keep growing. So, and since there's so many proteins, then you start looking, you say, well, all these proteins are involved in the whole system and they're causing this cancer to happen. Well, what about everybody that gets cancer, right? So now you start looking at the bigger scale. Everybody's getting cancer. In that case, you might say, well, isn't there a cure? There isn't, because think about it. Didn't I just say there's so many proteins in each pathway?
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a cure, you're looking for a specific protein. And you're trying to fix that specific protein without harming your other proteins, because all your other cells use the same damn protein. It's just altered in some small way that's causing it to work continuously. So how do you make a drug or something to kill that one set of cells that's causing the continuous cancer and not harm your normal cells? You know what I mean?
Because they're all working off that one.
Exactly. They're working off... See, the thing with mutations is you might think it might be like a radical mutation, like a huge mutation. Suddenly it's working continuously, or suddenly it's not working. Sometimes that is the case, but in most cases, it's just a very small mutation. Just such a slight mutation, because that's all it takes sometimes, just slight mutations. And then it alters it just enough so that it becomes cancerous, right? But if that's the case, obviously, like 99% of that protein looks exactly the same as our normal proteins.
So when people like go to get like,
So you can't create a drug. You can't create a drug to target it because it would since it's 99% the same as your regular ones, most likely the drug you created is going to target your regular cells and cause you to die from the drug. So you can't do that. So when people come out and say there's a cure for cancer, there really isn't. There's only treatments. You know, when we give you what's it called?
Chemo,
right? That's hitting your body with a goddamn sledgehammer. That is literally resetting your entire body. Why do you think people puke and lose hair? It just tells your body, shut off and restart. It's just hitting your body with massive amounts of radiation. It's terrible to go through chemo.
There was a theory about when they go to get the lumps cut out. Is that just pretty much delay as much as possible?
In cases like that, that's when it becomes metastatic, and it's basically like it's moving around the body and it's able to like harm the organs. So if you catch cancer early, you're pretty much fine because you can just target that and get it out of the way with radiation right now. This guy's driving backwards.
So is it like is it sectioned off? So like you say that with the
like
the
you know how they say
working off that
sometimes
main
we
one?
gotta cut your leg off or something if it's a cancer on the leg?
Yeah.
That's basically, they're like, okay, listen, it's spread so far, we have to get rid of it now before it spreads any further and harms your actual organs and causes death. That's what they're getting at.
I see. That makes a bit more sense because like I've always
okay, let me give you a case of something else. Like there's this case. It's called the Philadelphia chromosome. What happens is long story short, when your body's replicating and whatnot, the chromosomes need to replicate and combine and all this stuff. It's a very long thing I gotta talk about, but the point is it makes this chromosome and it causes a cancer. It just makes a growth factor that is constantly on. Not really a growth factor, but a growth protein that's constantly on and causing you, it just phosphorylates everything. And by phosphorylating, it activates. So I know it's getting kind of complicated with the words I'm saying, but basically it's just causing everything to be on. But doctors have found a way, or should I say researchers have found a way to target that Philadelphia chromosome and stop it from working with one drug. So there is, essentially you would say, oh, so that's a cure. Actually, no, it's just a treatment because we didn't get rid of the Philadelphia chromosome. That's encrypted in every single cell of your body. You know what I mean? Because it's in your DNA.
Yeah.
But we found a cure in the sense to inhibit it. By the drug that we brought in, it slows down the effect of what protein is made from that chromosome. You get what I mean? So sometimes, and remember how I told you it just takes slight mutations to get active again? Sometimes this Philadelphia chromosome can mutate once more and evade that drug that we're using. So it's not even a cure again. It's just a treatment. So what they do is they give you like a slew of drugs. They just give you like a spectrum, a whole spectrum of drugs that target it in different ways. So even if it did mutate, you're still pretty much safe. So there's that case where you stop that type of cancer. Just treat it enough to like hopefully it becomes fine.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But like I said, there is no cure for cancer. So whenever I see this stuff online saying, "Hey, look, they found a cure," they didn't. And then they say, you know, the thing that really bugs me is like this is how news reporters do it. They have to sell their papers, right? So news reporter comes out, cure for cancer found. When really, when they interviewed the doctor, he's like, we're looking at a possible cure. It's a possible cure. And when he says possible cure, it's only a possible cure for a specific type of cancer because of all the proteins I told you about. Maybe it's just to target this one specific protein and cure that.
Maybe a shitload of different specific ones because
So,
everybody's
and the
different.
other thing is, you know how they're like, oh, they're not letting it out? I've seen an interview where the doctor's like, or the researcher's like, it's not ready yet, we have to keep doing testing on it, right? But they're like, well, why don't you just give it out? And the news reporter's like, why don't you just give it out to the people, right? Let them test it. They're on the verge of dying. Why don't you just test it out on them? That is absolutely immoral and wrong to do because what if you still had a chance of living, right? You had still a chance of living, but this drug is just going to kill you even more because we didn't test it. We don't know the side effects of it. We don't know what it can do to you. And then how do we know you're not going to just turn around? What if it does work, but it has this massive side effect which causes other types of cancers to happen? You know what I mean? And then you're going to turn around and start suing us about it. When you just ran into, like, it's, and I know you could say, like, you could cover your ass and all that stuff, but it's honestly, you don't do it. It's immoral and wrong, and you have to keep doing the testing. So that's why they do like animal testing and bacterial testing and all this other types of tests. And then they do trial testing on clients, and then they release it. They got to make sure it works.
As like cancer, like how would I say this? Different in animals as in
It's exactly
human
the same.
beings, or
Exactly
the same.
Just okay. You got to know though, the DNA of an animal is different than a human. Slightly the same. Slightly the same. So certain when it comes to cancer, it's exactly the same pathway, the growth and the death pathway. If there's enough mutations in both pathways, it'll cause the cancer to happen.
And that's why that's
Now,
like,
see, that's the other thing. You know how you said is cancer the same? Well,
Yeah.
you know how I told you like certain chromosome, like see the Philadelphia chromosome? I think that's pretty much only a human chromosome type, right? So that's not seen in animals. So how do you really target that in animals? How do you make a drug that you can test on an animal and to see if it might work on an animal, but it might not work on humans? You know what I mean?
yeah. It's like the cold, like the flu. I mean, can't catch that from cats or dogs or anything because they have
Right.
different cells through it, don't they? It works off different. What do you call it?
Why did you
I'm
get
not-
so smart? How did you get
Yeah,
so
I'm not
smart?
the smart one here.
Can you
studied bio.
can you give me a theory on that?
I studied bio. My entire goddamn life, just bio.
When you write a book,
Okay,
you
look,
send it to
we'll
me
see.
like a lens.
We'll see. No, look, I went into bio, okay, but I'm the curious type, okay.
Yeah.
I'm very fucking curious. I'm always
Well, that's
like,
like me
I
with
gotta learn.
videos. Like if you ask me about video,
But you know what?
graphic
There was
design,
this saying that women are attracted to funny guys, not necessarily because they're funny, but because it's also the fact that they're smart. So
This is your ploy. This is your way.
no,
of
but
finding-
Yeah.
no, but in
Go to
reality,
bio.
okay, but really,
Do
I
biology, kids.
went into bio. I went into bio, studied that to all out. But you can't just go into one science without having to learn the other. So you have to learn physics and you have to learn chemistry. You got to be good at all of them. So it's not like when it comes to sciences, I pretty much know what I'm talking about.
Only then will you get the girl.
I think you should do a theory on how to get a girl.
How to get a girl.
Or just be like,
First, gentlemen,
and
you
then
must take
No,
this
just-
concoction of potion and drink it. Don't worry, it's
Should I
not
be good
cyanide.
looking? Should I be good looking, funny, or should I be smart?
if Doom does a Q&A and someone asks how do you get girls, he'll just start listing off what he's studying.
First of all, you need to tell them you're a funny guy, then they'll like you.
Yeah. In physics, in science, in biology.
Just look her straight in the eye and pull down your pants. Oh, man.
So funny. Thanks for
weird.
the theory, though. I think
Yeah.
it
Shit,
kinda
I
helps
just
a lot.
learned a whole lot. Didn't expect
Yeah.
to learn anything while playing Battlefield, but you know, smart kids play this too apparently.